My brother stood at the altar in his $8,000 tuxedo, grabbed the microphone from the best man, and said the words that would end him. Before we continue, I need to address something. His voice echoed through the garden venue. 200 guests went silent. My sister Riley is here today, and I think we all know she wasn't supposed to be. I was halfway to my seat holding a glass of champagne. I froze. Riley has always been. How do I put this nicely? He smiled. That practiced, charming smile that had fooled everyone for 28 years. Unwanted. By our parents. By this family. She's here because Mom felt guilty, but let's be honest. Nobody actually wanted her to come. The crowd gasped. Some laughed nervously. I looked at my parents in the front row. My mother had her hand over her mouth. But she wasn't shocked. She was laughing. Silent, shaking laughter behind her manicured fingers. My father's face was red, not from anger but from holding back his own laugh. My brother continued. So Riley, since you crashed the party anyway, try not to ruin the photos, okay? Stay in the back where you belong. The crowd erupted. Some people clapped. His groomsmen howled with laughter. His bride, Stephanie, looked uncomfortable but said nothing. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I set down my champagne glass on the nearest table, picked up my purse and walked toward the exit. But before I left that garden, I stopped at the gift table. I took back the envelope I'd placed there that morning. The one with the $15,000 check inside. Money I'd saved for 6 months working double shifts as an ER nurse. Money I'd planned to give them to help with their honeymoon. And I made a decision that would destroy everything they'd built. Before I tell you exactly how I dismantled my brother's entire life piece by piece, I need you to do something. Drop a comment and tell me, has a family member ever humiliated you in public? What did you do? I read every single story. And if you want to hear how this ends, hit that subscribe button right now because what comes next is brutal. Let me give you some context. My name is Riley Chin. Wait, not Chin. My name is Riley Morrison. I'm 28 years old. I'm an emergency room nurse in Portland, Oregon. And for my entire life I've been the family secret. My parents, Tom and Barbara Morrison, had my brother Blake when they were 25. Planned pregnancy. Dream child. Blake was everything they wanted. Athletic, charismatic, destined for greatness. Then 3 years later I came along. Unplanned. Unwanted. A mistake they never let me forget. When I was 7, I found a journal on my mother's nightstand. I wasn't snooping. I was looking for band-aids after I fell off my bike. The journal was open to a page dated 2 months before I was born. It said, I don't know if I can love this baby. Blake is perfect. Why did we have to ruin it? I put the journal back. I never told anyone. But that sentence lived in my brain like a parasite for the next 21 years. Growing up, Blake got everything. Private school, soccer camp, college tuition fully paid. When he graduated from business school, my parents threw him a party at a country club and invited 80 people. When I graduated from nursing school, my mother texted me, congrats. Dinner next week. We never had that dinner. Blake started a consulting firm in Seattle. My parents invested $50,000 into it. When I asked for $3,000 to help with my student loans, my father said, Riley, you're a nurse. You'll be fine. Blake's business is an investment in the family's future. I was not part of that future. But I kept trying. I kept showing up. I sent birthday cards. I called on holidays. I pretended everything was fine because I thought maybe if I was good enough, quiet enough, helpful enough, they'd finally see me. Then Blake got engaged. Stephanie was perfect. Blonde, bubbly, came from money. The wedding was going to cost $120,000. My parents paid for half. When the invitation arrived at my apartment, it was addressed to Riley Morrison and guest. I didn't have a guest. I'd been single for 2 years. But I RSVP'd yes anyway because I thought maybe this time things would be different. I bought a dress. A beautiful lavender dress that cost $300. More than I'd ever spent on clothes. I saved $15,000 to give them as a wedding gift. $15,000. 6 months of overtime shifts. 6 months of skipping meals and living on ramen and sleeping 4 hours a night. I thought if I gave them this gift, they'd finally see how much I cared. How hard I tried. How much I wanted to be part of this family. I was wrong. The wedding was at a vineyard in Napa Valley. Gorgeous. Rolling hills, string lights, white roses everywhere. Looked like a Pinterest board came to life. I drove 6 hours from Portland to get there. I arrived the morning of the wedding. I wasn't invited to the rehearsal dinner the night before. Blake said it was immediate family only. I wasn't in the immediate family. When I walked into the venue, my mother saw me first. She was standing near the entrance in a silver gown holding a mimosa. "Riley." She looked surprised. "You came." "Of course I came," I said. "Blake's my brother." She smiled tightly. "Well, try to stay out of the photographer's way." That should have been my first clue. I found my seat. Table 12. In the back. Near the catering staff. My parents were at table 1. Blake's friends were at tables 2 through 5. I was surrounded by strangers, plus ones of plus ones, people who barely knew the bride and groom. But I stayed. I smiled. I clapped when Blake and Stephanie walked down the aisle. I took photos. I tried to be invisible. Then came the speeches. The best man gave a toast. Funny, sweet, perfect. Stephanie's maid of honor cried through hers. My father stood up and gave a speech about how proud he was of Blake, how he'd always known Blake would achieve great things. He didn't mention me once. Then Blake grabbed the microphone. "I just want to say a few things before we get to the first dance," he said. And that's when he said it. "My sister Riley is here today, and I think we all know she wasn't supposed to be." The air left my lungs. Riley has always been unwanted. By our parents. By this family. I looked at my mother. She was laughing. "She's here because Mom felt guilty, but let's be honest, nobody actually wanted her to come." My father's shoulders were shaking. He was laughing too. "So Riley, try not to ruin the photos, okay? Stay in the back where you belong." The crowd laughed. Applauded. Like it was a joke. Like humiliating me in front of 200 people was entertainment. I stood up. Everyone turned to look at me. I didn't say a word. I walked to the gift table, picked up my envelope and left. Behind me I heard Blake's voice on the microphone. "And there she goes, ladies and gentlemen. Classic Riley. Always so dramatic." More laughter. I got into my car. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely grip the steering wheel. I opened the envelope. The check was still inside. $15,000. 6 months of my life. I tore it into pieces. Tiny confetti-sized pieces. I rolled down my window and let them scatter across the vineyard parking lot like snow. Then I drove home. And I started planning. I didn't cry. Not that night. Not the next day either. Crying was what the old Riley would have done. The Riley who begged for scraps of affection. Riley who believed she could earn love through good behavior. That Riley was dead. I spent the first 48 hours after the wedding doing research. That Riley was dead. I spent the first 48 hours after the wedding doing research. Blake's consulting firm was called Morrison Solutions. It had 12 employees. He'd been running it for 3 years. On paper it looked successful. Slick website testimonials, case studies. But I'm a nurse. I know how to spot patterns. I know how to notice when something's wrong. So I dug deeper. I started with LinkedIn. I looked up every employee listed on Blake's website. 3 of them didn't exist. Their profile photos were stock images. Their work histories were vague and generic. That was red flag number 1. Then I looked at Morrison Solutions' client list. They claimed to work with major corporations, tech companies, healthcare systems, financial firms. I called 5 of them. Pretended I was a potential client looking for references. Not one of them had ever heard of Morrison Solutions. Red flag number 2. I pulled Blake's business registration records. Public information. Anyone can access it. Morrison Solutions LLC was registered in Delaware, a state known for tax shelters and corporate secrecy. The business address listed was a P.O. box. Red flag number 3. Then I found the smoking gun. Blake had a business partner. A guy named Derek Shaw. I'd never heard of him. Blake never mentioned him at family dinners. I googled Derek Shaw. He'd been arrested 2 years earlier for wire fraud. The case was dismissed on a technicality, but the details were public. Derek had been accused of running a fake consulting firm, taking upfront payments from clients and disappearing. Blake was in business with a con artist. I saved everything. Screenshots. PDFs. Printed records. I built a file 3 inches thick. Then I made a phone call. IRS Criminal Investigation Division. How can I help you? My heart was pounding. I was sitting in my car in the hospital parking lot during my lunch break. I'd rehearsed this conversation 50 times. "Hi," I said. My voice was steady. "Clinical. I'd like to report suspected tax fraud." The agent on the other end asked me a series of questions. Business name, address, nature of the suspected fraud. I answered every single one. Then I said, "I have documentation. Financial records, client complaints, evidence of fabricated business activity. Can I send it to you?" "Yes, ma'am. We'll open an investigation." I hung up. Then I called the Oregon State Bar Association. Blake wasn't a lawyer, but he'd been advertising legal consulting services on his website. "That's illegal." I filed a formal complaint. Then I contacted the Better Business Bureau. Filed another complaint. Then I reached out to 3 of the clients Blake had listed on his website, the ones that didn't exist. I posed as a journalist writing a story about consulting firms. I asked if they'd ever worked with Morrison Solutions. They said no. I published their responses on a public blog, anonymously. Within a week, Morrison Solutions' Google reviews tanked. 1 star. 2 stars. People started asking questions. Then the IRS showed up. Blake called me 3 weeks after the wedding. I was working a night shift when my phone buzzed. I saw his name on the screen and smiled. I let it ring. Didn't answer. He called again an hour later. Then again. 4 times in one shift. Finally, he left a voicemail. "Riley, it's Blake. Isn't it? I need to talk to you. Something's going on with my business. The IRS is auditing me. They're asking about clients I don't even remember. And someone's been posting lies about me online. I don't know who, but I think it might be a competitor trying to sabotage me. Anyway, I wanted to reach out. See how you're doing. We should grab coffee soon. Call me back." I deleted the voicemail. 2 days later, my mother called. "Riley, sweetheart." Her voice was syrupy. She'd never called me sweetheart in my life. "Blake told me he's been trying to reach you. He's going through a really hard time right now. His business is being targeted by some kind of smear campaign. He could really use his family's support." "Interesting," I said. "So you'll call him?" "No. Riley, I know you were upset about the wedding, but Blake was just joking. You're being overly sensitive. This is serious. He needs help." "He said I was unwanted," I said. My voice was flat. "In front of 200 people. You laughed." "I did not." "I saw you, Mom. You covered your mouth, but you were laughing." She sighed. "Riley, you're making this about you again. Blake is in trouble. Can't you put your feelings aside for once and be there for your brother?" "No." I hung up. She didn't call back. 1 month after the wedding, Morrison Solutions shut down. The IRS investigation found $180,000 in unreported income. Blake had been funneling money through offshore accounts. He owed $67,000 in back taxes, plus penalties. His business partner, Derek, disappeared. Fled to Mexico. Left Blake holding the bag. Blake's clients, the real ones, the 3 people who'd actually hired him, sued him for breach of contract. He'd taken their money and delivered nothing. He lost everything. The office. The employees. His reputation. He had to move back in with our parents. My mother called me again. "Riley, this is your fault." I laughed. I laughed. "Excuse me. Blake's business collapsed because of you. I know you did something. He said someone's been sabotaging him and I know it was you." "Prove it," I said. "You're destroying this family." "No, Mom. Blake destroyed himself. I just made sure people knew the truth." "You're a monster." I learned from the best. I hung up. Blake sent me an email 2 weeks later. Subject line, "I'm sorry." The email was long. Rambling. He said he was sorry for what he said at the wedding. That he was drunk. That he didn't mean it. That he was going through a hard time and he took it out on me. He said he knew I'd reported him to the IRS. That he didn't blame me. That he deserved it. He said our parents were furious with me. That they told him to cut me off completely. But he didn't want to do that. He wanted to rebuild our relationship. He said he needed $10,000 to pay off his debts. Just a loan. He'd pay me back. He promised. I read the email 3 times. Then I replied with 1 sentence. "You said I was unwanted. You were right. I don't want you anymore." I blocked his email. Blocked his number. blocked my parents' numbers. And I never heard from them again. 6 months later I got a LinkedIn message from Stephanie. Blake's wife. Ex-wife actually. She'd filed for divorce. Riley, I don't know if you'll even read this, but I wanted to reach out. I left Blake 3 months ago. He'd been lying to me about everything. The business, the money, his relationship with your family. I had no idea how badly he treated you until after the wedding when people started telling me stories. I'm so sorry I didn't say anything that day. I should have stood up for you. You didn't deserve that. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I replied, thank you. I hope you're doing okay. She wrote back immediately. I am now. You were smart to walk away when you did. I should have done the same. We never spoke again. But I appreciated the message. It was the only apology I ever got. I'm 29 now. It's been a year since the wedding. I still work as an ER nurse. I still live in Portland. I have a small apartment, a good group of friends, and a life that's entirely mine. I don't talk to my family. I don't miss them. Sometimes people ask me if I regret what I did. If I feel guilty about destroying Blake's business. I don't. Blake didn't lose everything because I reported him. He lost everything because he built his life on lies. I just made sure those lies came to light. My parents didn't lose me because I walked away. They lost me because they never wanted me in the first place. And the $15,000 I almost gave Blake for his wedding? I used it to pay off my student loans. Every last cent. I don't owe them anything anymore. Not my money. Not my forgiveness. Not my presence. I'm finally free. If you've ever walked away from a toxic family and never looked back, drop a comment below and tell me your story. And if this resonated with you, hit that subscribe button. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's building a life so good they can't touch it. Thanks for listening.